Do you want to learn Japanese? Maybe you just didn't know where to start. Hey Dyce, Quirk. I'm a little bit low on cash right now. Perfect, because in this video, I'm going to be showing you my top 5 favorite free Japanese language learning apps that I've come to just know, love, and use all the time. And in addition to that, if you stick around till the very end of the video, then I'm going to be showing you my very favorite Japanese language learning resource, which can be used from anybody in a beginner stage of learning the language all the way to an intermediate stage. So, please make sure you stick around for that. And before we get started, I have a few disclaimers. First off, I'm not personally sponsored by any of the apps or resources that I'm going to mention in this video. In this video, I'm talking about ones that I've personally used and I personally think are great for different tools. Secondly, I didn't list these in any particular order. I basically am going to be telling you some cons and pros for each one of them and how they can be an excellent tool for helping you learn Japanese. So, with all of that said, let's not waste time and let's get to it. Before we got started with the list, I wanted to give 2 honorable mentions. First off, Anki. Anki is a great flashcard app, but it doesn't really teach you Japanese, so that's why I didn't include it in this list. And the second is Lingodeer. And I so desperately wanted to include Lingodeer on this list, but when I went to the app and I was testing it out, it didn't have enough free content for it to fit that free criteria, which is a big point in this particular list. So, if it had more free content, it most certainly would have been on this list. Believe me, I love it, but I can't put it on because it's not free. Let's start with number 5, Duolingo. Now, before you roast me for putting this on the list, I know about the cons, okay? Let's list a couple. First off, they have some weird sentences, which really aren't very practical that they teach you. Secondly, they have some weird pronunciation for different kanji because the app doesn't really recognize that kanji can have multiple pronunciations and sometimes it's wrong. And also, there are so many ads. It's like after every single lesson is an ad, and that could take up so much time. We also know the big one. He's always watching. However, Duolingo has a number of great pros going for it as well. First off, if you have just started learning Japanese and you are just starting your journey, then this is a great app for learning hiragana and katakana, which are 2 of the 3 alphabets in the Japanese language, and it's great for learning those characters. In addition, it's great for learning vocab and, surprisingly enough, grammar. When I first downloaded the app, it didn't have all of this grammar, but they've added that since the beginning, which is totally awesome to me. In addition, the Duolingo app actually is kind of in a gamey kind of format, so that helps to keep you engaged, and it also has a streak system, which is going to keep you engaged as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of good pros for Duolingo, and if you're just getting started, this is a great place to start. Build your vocab, learn some of the hiragana and katakana, get that down, and then also you can learn a little bit of grammar here as well, but it's definitely not the best for grammar. So, yeah, those are just a couple really good things from Duolingo. Number 4, Memrise. Now, personally, I think that this is all around just a better app than Duolingo, and that's because it has just as much grammar, it has a load of content, all of the sentences that you learn on the app are actually just a little bit more practical, and in addition, you also get native Japanese speakers saying all of the words for you and all of the phrases. So you can actually see video of them saying the words, and personally, that's just awesome. Like, I love that because it not only helps you just see what the mouth looks like when they're saying the words, but you also get to hear it a little bit better. And obviously, they're not going to mispronounce any of the characters that are listed. So that's super cool. And the biggest kicker of all, which I think is amazing, no ads, which is awesome. This is why I love this one over Duolingo, because I just feel like I'm giving just as much time to ads as I am to my study, whereas in this app, it doesn't happen. One of the biggest cons with this app, though, is that it doesn't really give good grammar lessons. So this is great for vocab and for just learning phrases and stuff, but it's really not great for learning the grammar so that you can make your own sentences. So, let's go on to number 3. Tae Kim's Guide to Learning Japanese. Now, this app is really different from the first 2, but first let's look at the pros. It has a lot of grammar, and it's very thorough in its grammar explanations. Number 2, it has just loads of material for you to go through. It'll take you forever to get through everything in this app. Number 3, it has no ads, which that's a big thing for me. And number 4, it also teaches it from a Japanese perspective, which is very, very interesting because in Duolingo and Memrise, it actually teaches it from an English learner's perspective. So it adds articles like the and stuff like that. It adds subjects, which typically are left out of Japanese sentences. And this app actually teaches you from a Japanese mindset. So it'll remove those, and it might be a little bit more difficult when you first get started to get into that. But later down the line, it could be very helpful for your Japanese learning. So this is a really great app, but it has some major cons as well. If you're just getting started, this app, it doesn't really play like a game, kind of like Duolingo and Memrise, so that can make it a lot less engaging. It also doesn't have a streak system, so if you're having a hard time getting back into it every day, this might not be the app for you. In addition, there was one more thing I wanted to mention, and that was, it's basically a book, okay? You're downloading an app book, and I don't think that that's the best for when you're just getting started. If you're using it as a reference tool or using it for certain grammar, then it is excellent. So just keep that in mind when you're using this app. Number 2, Easy Japanese. Now, this particular app is way different than the other ones because it tries to teach you Japanese by having you translate Japanese news articles. Let's look at the pros real quick, okay? First off, it is excellent for practicing your listening and your reading skills, and that's because every article also has an audio recording of the article. So you can listen to it or you can read it. Really awesome for just practical learning in general. In addition, it also has a number of different tools that you wouldn't normally have if you just had the article in front of you, like a dictionary tool and just all of this great stuff. It also has JLPT practice tests, which if you haven't heard of JLPT is the Japanese language proficiency test. And essentially, if you want to get a job in Japan, you have to test into JLPT 3. There's 5 different levels, 5 being the lowest, and it goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1 being the highest. And if you can test in the JLPT 3, then you could probably get a job in Japan. But if you can't, then it's going to be much more difficult. So that's really a great resource to have inside of an app. And in addition, you also get to learn a little bit about Japanese news. So that's really a cool pro. Some of the cons are, first off, this is definitely not for beginners. Even though it has some kind of easier articles, it's definitely for more like high beginner to low intermediate. It also has a very, very, very intimidating interface. Like when you jump on the app, you will be intimidated, and it'll be difficult to navigate the interface until after you've messed with it a little bit. However, I wanted to include it on this list because if you are in that range, like kind of late beginner to early intermediate, this could be a really excellent way to step up your game and to step up your Japanese learning. And if you're higher than that, then this is an absolute must for anybody that's practicing their Japanese at a high intermediate level to just like a pro level. So definitely make sure you check out that app. And number 1, HelloTalk. Now, this is like a social media app for learning a language. Basically, you tell them what language you're good at, and you tell them what language you want to learn, and then it pairs you up with people. So essentially on this app, you can see posts in Japanese for practicing your reading skills. You can make posts in Japanese, and it gives them a chance to correct you, so you're practicing your writing skills. You can use an audio portion of the app where you can either talk to people directly, or you can put posts with your audio, and people can correct that. So you're practicing your speaking, you're practicing your listening, because other people can do that with you. And the coolest thing about this app is it doesn't matter what level you're at. This is a great app for whether you're a beginner or whether you're a pro. And I mean like pro, okay? Because you're speaking directly with people from Japan. In addition, this app should be used in conjunction with whatever app you're using. So if you're using Duolingo or Memrise, Tae Kim's Guide to Learning Japanese, Japanese Easy, doesn't matter. You should be using this app in conjunction because every time you learn a new skill in one of these other apps or you learn new vocab, you should be trying to put it into sentences inside of HelloTalk so that you can practice. Some of the big cons for this app are it's not going to teach you any lessons or any grammar, so you're going to have to get that from some other place. In addition, sometimes because you're kind of learning from an actual native speaker, when they correct you, you might not know exactly what you did wrong, and you might have a hard time kind of getting that correction back or translating that correction to you. However, this is kind of a good thing too, because when you go to Japan, you're naturally going to have some conversations where you don't understand each other and you kind of have to work through it. So this is just great practice for that. There's also one more con that I want to bring up, and it's kind of both a pro and a con at the same time. And that is, the more you put yourself out there, the more you're going to get back from it. And you really do have to put yourself out there when it comes to HelloTalk, because there's all of these different ways that you can engage with native speakers of Japanese. And there's a lot of Japanese people that actually want to speak with you to practice their English too. But you really have to be willing to make mistakes. You really have to be willing to put posts out there even if you know you're not going to get it correct every time. You really have to be willing to actually speak with some people from that native language. And the more that you do, the better you're going to get, and the more you're going to get out of this app. And again, with this app, you should be using it in conjunction with everything else. So this is a great opportunity for you to grab something that you learn in this app, bring it in here, make a post, make a mistake or two. Maybe try experimenting, combining different grammar points and putting them into one sentence and then having somebody correct you. So that's kind of everything that I wanted to say about HelloTalk. It's a great app, but there's one more thing, the bonus that I promised you guys. And so, because you've reached this point in the video, I know that you are serious about learning Japanese, and I want to share with you my number one resource for learning Japanese for free online. And before I do, if you found this video informative or helpful, please consider smashing that like button or subscribing. We put out weekly content about Japan, its culture, and travel, so I just hope that you'll consider that. But our number one resource for learning Japanese for free online, better than all the other apps, is George Trombley's Japanese from Zero YouTube series, where he takes you step by step from the very beginning learning Japanese. And there's a number of awesome pros. First off, he's super engaging. It's super great grammar lessons, and there's so much content. But also, you know, he's just a really funny guy. So I would definitely recommend that you check it out. I'll put a link in the description. And also some of the cons, it is a YouTube channel, so it doesn't have an app. It is free, but it's kind of light on vocab. You would have to buy his book series to go along with it, which you don't need to go through the course. It's totally awesome. And also, it's really kind of a little bit long, but that's great because you're going to be learning a super huge amount of stuff. Thank you all so much for checking out this video. If you found it helpful, please remember to like and subscribe. And also, if you know of any other apps or any other materials or resources that are really awesome for learning Japanese, please leave them down in the comments. I appreciate you all. And with all that said, Dyce Quirk out.